stretch of the 2025 regular season in a promising position. Still firmly in contention for the conference title and with an outside shot at the college football playoff, the team's outlook appeared favorable. Yet in assessing the numbers that matter, namely the FPI projections, one sees a subtle but telling decline. In 3 of their last 4 games, Miami's simulated probability of victory has dropped relative to earlier forecasts. According to one recent article, the Hurricanes were projected to finish the season with about 9.4 wins and 2.6 losses based on FPI simulations. Breaking it down, the individual games show the shift. According to the reporting, in their upcoming home game versus the Syracuse Orange, Miami was attributed a 96.3% chance of winning, a strong number, and one slightly higher than the 95.7% projected the prior week. Against the NC State Wolfpack, on 11/15, the probability of a Miami win fell from 90.8% to 88.3%. At the Virginia Tech Hokies 11/22, Miami's win chance dropped slightly from 89.0% to 88.7%. In their final regular season contest at the Pittsburgh Panthers 11/29, the projection dipped somewhat more sharply from 71.5% to 67.0%. So in 3 of those 4 remaining games, NC State, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, the FPI projection slipped. Only the Syracuse game saw a slight uptick. That pattern draws attention because the FPI is designed to reflect the remaining strength of schedule, team efficiency, remaining simulations, win probabilities, and other quantitative factors. Why does this matter? First, it signals that while Miami remains favored in most of those contests, the margin for error is creeping ever so slightly wider. A drop from, say, 90.8% to 88.3% doesn't feel dramatic in isolation, but when you're chasing a playoff berth or a conference title run, every percentage point matters. Secondly, it reveals how the context of the schedule and recent results are weighing on the simulations. Miami's recent loss at SMU, among other issues, has dented the perception of invulnerability. Indeed, ESPN's FPI metrics show that after the SMU loss, Miami was still the top team in the ACC per FPI, but their control over their destiny had weakened. Let's unpack the likely drivers behind the slide. One obvious factor is the loss to SMU. According to the reports, despite Miami entering that game as a favorite, they lost in overtime, which tends to create a reassessment in predictive models. That loss not only impacted their record but also their statistical profile, perhaps exposing weaknesses, e.g., in late-game execution or depth, that models like FPI pick up. Next is schedule context. Each remaining opponent has its own variables. NC State has had ups and downs, Virginia Tech is playing better under interim leadership, and Pittsburgh remains one of the stronger remaining conference foes. Miami's probability drops reflect the combination of these opponent considerations and the inherent uncertainty of road games, especially the trip to Pittsburgh. The biggest drop among the 4 is to Pittsburgh, down to a 67.0% chance of winning. That indicates the model sees this as a serious challenge compared to the rest of the slate. It also underscores how a single slip-up in that game could end Miami's control of their fate. Moreover, Miami's overall projected win total 9.4 and projected losses 2.6 reflect that the model is anticipating that even though they are favored in most games, the possibility of at least a loss or 2 remains non-trivial. With such projections, the window for the playoff narrows. In fact, when combining win probabilities, Miami's chance to win out, i.e., finish undefeated in the last stretch, was cited as about 49.7% in one of the articles. And at the same time, other metrics such as their strength of schedule, remaining SOS, efficiency metrics on offense-defense, and game control rankings are not overwhelmingly dominant, even though Miami is still strong. The drop in FPI in 3 of the 4 games also speaks to broader risk factors. Even teams that are favorites can face subtle erosion in their margin if there are signs of inconsistency, or if their remaining schedule is tougher than it appears on paper. The FPI is driven by simulations, 20,000 simulations. In fact, so small changes in assumptions or efficiencies can translate into measurable drops in win probability. From the perspective of the Hurricanes' season narrative, this pattern is meaningful. The team started the year with high expectations, and through much of the season, they delivered. But now, as they enter the crunch time of November, the questions that predictive models are implicitly asking: can this team withstand pressure on the road? Can they execute against good competition? Are they sufficient margin favorites to absorb variance? Seem to be influencing the outlook. The fact that 3 upcoming games show falling probabilities suggests a more cautious projection rather than blind optimism. For the players, coaches, and fans, what should this signal? One takeaway is, Treat the remaining games like they matter, because the models do. Being a 90% favorite is great, but it is not a guarantee. A single miscue or upset can undo a whole season's worth of gains. For Miami, the game at Pittsburgh looms largest, with only a approximately 67% chance of winning per FPI. That means the model sees a approximately 33% chance of losing. In the world of simulations, that's 1 in 3, not trivial. For a team hoping to win out and boost its playoff profile, it's a risk to manage. Another takeaway: maintain both offense and defense at high levels, particularly in situational execution, late game, on the road, turnovers. Models like FPI implicitly incorporate recent performance in control metrics and efficiency metrics. Weakness here translates into trimming win probability. That the report mentions Miami ranking 55th in special teams efficiency even as they rank higher in offense defense as a cue. Finally, there is the strategic and psychological dimension. The knowledge that projections have shifted downward, even if marginally, might prompt the coaching staff to emphasize no let-up mentality, avoid overconfidence, and prepare especially for the tougher remaining road games. It's an opportunity to reinforce standards, deepen focus, and treat each remaining matchup as a must-W, and even if the team is favored. For the Hurricanes supporters, this data signals that the campaign is still on track, but not bulletproof. It's an invitation to stay engaged, demand consistency, and understand that the margin for error is smaller than earlier in the season. In summary, the Miami Hurricanes' FPI outlook in their final 4 games shows that while they remain favored in most of those contests, their projected chances have slipped in 3 of 4. That suggests the model sees rising risk, tougher competition, or less margin for error, all of which mean the team must stay sharp, avoid complacency, and execute at a high level if they hope to achieve their conference and playoff ambitions. The numbers are not disastrous, far from it, but they act as a cautionary marker. If Miami wins out, they'll have demonstrated resilience. If they falter, the drop in projections may look prescient. Time will tell whether the Hurricanes can translate favorable odds into favorable outcomes. The chance for Miami to win dropped in 3 of its final 4 games from the ESPN Football Power Index projections. By Alan Rubenstein, 4 hours ago. Miami Hurricanes running back Doug McGee, 33, is facing 2 diving Vanderbilt defenders, Steve Scoopas, 87, and Jimmy Wyatt, 66. Rugged Miami defeated the Commodores 28-14 before 12,996 die-hard fans at Dudley Field on November 13, 1965. Frank Empson, The Tennessean, USA Today Network via Main Images. The ESPN Football Power Index projections for Miami have dropped for its final 3 games, but rose for Saturday against Syracuse. Miami is projected to finish with 9.4 wins and 2.6 losses with a 49.7% chance to win out by the ESPN FPI. Miami has a 96.3% chance to beat Syracuse on Saturday per ESPN FPI projections. That is up from 95.7% last week. Syracuse lost 27-10 to North Carolina on Friday night and has lost 5 consecutive games with their last win on September 20 at Clemson. Miami has an 88.3% chance of beating North Carolina State on November 15. The Hurricanes had a 90.8% chance to beat the Wolfpack in the Week 10 projections. NC State beat Georgia Tech 48-36 on Saturday. Miami leads the all-time series against NC State the 1st of June 11. Miami is projected with an 88.7% chance to win at Virginia Tech in its penultimate regular season game on November 22. That is down from 89.0% last week. Virginia Tech has lost 3 of its last 4 games. Virginia Tech beat California 42-34 in overtime on October 24 for its last win. Miami is projected with a 67.0% chance to win its final game at Pittsburgh on November 22. The ESPN FPI projected Miami with a 71.5% chance to win at Pittsburgh in the Week 10 projections. Pittsburgh is 7-2 overall and 5-1 in the ACC, tied for second with Georgia Tech. Miami has to win out to have any chance of staying alive for a college football playoff berth. The losses to Louisville and SMU came with Miami as a significant favorite to win by the ESPN FPI. The last 4 games of the 2025 regular season are no different, with Miami expected to win each game in about 2/3 of simulations.